Africans. Then we go to look at these things that people say, well, why did it all disappear? How come it all this? But look at the present world today. Suppose there was a third world war, which God forbid, but suppose there was. Most of the technology of the world is concentrated at certain centers within a matter of minutes. And believe me, it is a matter of minutes. It's not no days and weeks. The preliminary battles may take a few days and weeks, movement of armies and a lot of bluffing. But when the bomb strikes, it's just a matter of minutes. And the people who don't see the light when it strikes are the lucky people. Most of the major cities of this civilization will be not even smoking. Will be almost nothing. The bombs dropped at Hiroshima and Nagasaki are baby bombs. They have bombs now 1,000 times more powerful. It does not smash cities, it turns them into vapor. Even the clouds burn. Even the waters of the ocean are thrown up into the sky. You can imagine what the horror. People might survive. People might survive, but they will survive on the periphery, the edge of the world. That is the people we're going to look to centuries down the road and says, that was their level, that was the level of science in the 20th century. That's what they're doing to Africa. Because what they struck us with was equivalent to 100 hydrogen bombs. Particularly where they struck us most. The consciousness of the African people. I have seen people scraped in such a way that you wonder if there's a brain left at all. Everything is an echo and echo and echo. They haven't even begun to question the basics in this civilization. As Dr. Diop has shown, that a great deal of the Greek science, and we're not attacking the Greeks, because they had their own genius too, but the basis, all these things they claim, you see, Hippocrates, taking sections out of the work of earlier Egyptian writers without giving any credit to them at all. Pythagoras, the Pythagorean theorem was worked out long ago. Pythagoras spent 7 years, some people say 22 in Egypt, and he comes back with all this, even medical theories, and brings it all back to Greece and all the claim. All the great European scholars went to Africa. Thales of Miletus, Democritus, Pythagoras, Eudoxus. There's a whole list of them walking into Africa, picking up things from astronomy, geometry, medicine, etc., and going back home and claiming it to be theirs. Father of this and father of that, when they're the children. In the field of scripts, and this is one of the things, we're the non-literate peoples, I've often heard this, we are the simple peoples, the simple societies, we are the oral peoples. The English are oral. Where is their script? This is not English script, this is Roman script. There were only a few Europeans who wrote, only a few Europeans had script, and they gave it to the others. When Cicero conquered Britain, or when the Romans conquered Britain, I remember Cicero saying, the English are so stupid, I am not even sure I could make them into good slaves. And I'm not casting aspersion on the English, I'm just telling you what Cicero said. But all this thing about oral, there are many scripts in Africa. The first major script that was to affect and influence a great part of the world was African. That script at Tasseti, which goes up and becomes more advanced and developed in Egypt as the Africans move up. The Meroitic script, which we have not yet broken. We have 800 texts in Meroitic. We haven't yet broken the code. We have Manding script. We have a whole series. I was in the jungles of Suriname and found them using, the men were writing in the Afaka script to their girlfriends. They came with it from Africa, the Afaka script. They were writing the Afaka script. The Akan script, they developed apart from, they had drum scripts. Nyangoran Boa has shown us the complicated drum scripts they developed. So that there are written scripts in Africa. So yes, only a few people use them. That was true of Europe too. Very few Europeans were literate. Even many medieval European kings did not write. They had this scholar caste as you had in Africa and America and in Asia. A few people wrote. It is only within recent times that you have the great mass of people educated. But it always seems, because we stand at the end, broken and defeated, that we were the last to come on the ladder. No, sir. It's just the opposite. When you go and look at their medicine, I spoke in Atlanta to the Center for Disease Control. Africans had aspirin before us. They were using Salix capensis, which is salicylic acid, the main active ingredient in aspirin. They were using tetracycline 14 centuries ago in Nubia. They found the yellow-green flash of tetracycline in Nubian bones 14 centuries ago. They only started using that antibiotic in America in the 1950s. They pioneered in several operations. They pioneered in the cesarean operation. Dr. Finch has written a fine thing on the cesarean. At the time when that operation was experimental in Europe, people like Dr. Felkin went into Africa and observed the Banyoro surgeons performing the cesarean, and the mother was hale and hearty after 4 or 5 days. No woman survived the cesarean in Europe in the 1870s. None. No woman survived. And they observed the operation, the way they stitched, the way they opened the belly, the kind of instruments they used. They observed they were using one of the instruments, the cautery iron, with such fantastic skill. It was very minor tissue damage. It caused great ruptures in the European hospitals. They found that Africans were using both anesthetics and antiseptics in their operating theaters at that time, when in Europe, Lister had only introduced antiseptics 2 years earlier than the witness of this operation, which the witness said must have been going on for quite a while, because the Africans were performing with routine skill what was then experimental surgery in Europe. In the 13th century, they were performing eye cataract surgery in Chennai. But when we learn about African medicine, they go to the quacks because it's exotic and primitive and nice. So you go and you picture the quack. That's why the camera lies. You take the camera out. The camera is not supposed to lie. You concentrate on the edge of a world. You pick out the quack and you listen to everything he says, all his little magic and his nonsense. He says, well, that's African medicine. You don't deal with the scientific superstructure of that medicine. If I wanted to do that to American medicine, boy, are there quacks out there. I am terrified of getting sick, because I'm sure my sickness would be fatal. I have never been diagnosed correctly. As soon as I go to the diagnosis so that I could guess the worst possible scenario so I could fight against it. So when you look at medical science, you see, for example, one of the innovations that Africans were the first to use drugs to deal with hypertension and certain forms of psychotic disorder. Even one of their medicines, reserpine, comes out of the African medicine chest. They have a vast herbal pharmacology. We are only now beginning to study this and see the scientific knowledge the Africans had of plants. And when we talk about plants, they were the first in the agricultural field. Recently, there's been a big discovery which has been disputed, where they found that Wadi Kubania and Wadi Tushka in Egypt and Nubia, the earliest cultivation of cereal, wheat and barley, etc. And this was dated about 18,000 years ago, about 7,000 years before any other civilization. It has now been down-dated. They said they made a mistake. But when they thought they were right and that they had made a mistake, they started to excuse it. They said it is probably not true that agriculture is the basis of civilization.